screen share?
Yeah, the 9 and 10.
Let me
The slides are a shortened version of what we gave you
Okay,
last time we were here, so.
all right,
There you
good.
go. Got both on screen.
So if you all want to just introduce yourself for the record, we're live streaming. Welcome back.
I'm Janet Hurley, the chair of the Land Use Review Board. I reside in Winhall. Prior to starting this job a year ago, I was a regional planner. Before that, municipal planning director and zoning administrator in Manchester for many years. Kirsten?
I think we're introduced to everyone last go around. I'm Kirsten Sultan again. I'm one of the members of the board. My background is both in engineering and also frontline administration of Act 250 in the Northeast Kingdom region.
And thank you both for coming back. And then we have Peter online.
Yeah, good afternoon, all. Pete Gill. Let's see, give you a quick camera there, maybe. Pete Gill, I'm the executive director for the Land Use Review Board. I've been with the board in that role for about 3 years. And prior to that, I was with the Natural Resources Board, its predecessor, for about 8 years as an attorney.
Okay, we
I
have
also live in East Montpelier and raise some chickens, which you all might remember because I gave you a quiz on that once.
how many chickens, Peter?
The flock is a strong 9 at the moment.
Okay. We have, thank you all for coming in. We've been talking about this quite a bit on and off. We only have about 20 minutes here. So we just want to try and use that time. And maybe we'll let you speak and uninterrupted until we absolutely need to interrupt.
Pete, do you have the PDF of the proposed draft language or the draft proposed language?
Yep.
I think,
And we didn't come in with a presentation. We didn't know exactly what areas you were interested in hearing more about or maybe questions. So we're very open to using your time as best to help you decipher all of this.
Yeah, and Pete, Chair Durfee is saying that they are focused on the recommendations 9 and 10 and specifically trying to understand what Stony Brook entails and what it would mean to make it automatic or just to use it as part of a permit process. So he's suggesting that he feels that recommendation 10 is fairly straightforward, just on the log and pulp yards, making those not part of the definition of wood products manufacturers, but reverting back to what they were considered before as part of logging and forestry.
Yeah, I don't think we need to spend any time
on 10. Yeah. I mean, focusing on 9. So if you want to show this on screen, Kirsten and Brooke Dingledine from the board worked this up. It went to the board. The board then directed Kirsten and Brooke to get feedback from A&R, and that's where it is.
That's right. So we just want to make clear, this has not yet been
finalized.
It has not received the benefit of input from A&R. I guess we're waiting for their feedback.
So what you're showing us is language that you're still tinkering.
Developing.
It doesn't have anybody's official stamp on it.
Right.
Doesn't mean that we can't turn it into a bill and pass that bill and send it to the governor.
Well,
That's up to you.
That's up to us.
It has the,
Before we do that, I have a question.
Yes.
There was a slide where number 9 took up most of the screen.
Yeah,
Could I see that? Just
there you go.
thank you.
Look at that. It's like magic. So recommend that the legislature extend exemptions to forestry and logging like those that are available for farming under 2,500 feet, provided existing permit conditions for permitted projects limiting tree cutting to address Act 250 criteria are not invalidated, and providing tree removal limits are available conditions for future projects to address Act 250 criteria on a parcel. So,
Chairman, I have a question about that, if I may.
Please.
Thank you, John. we had someone come in here recently in the last 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks. And I think they were down in Bethel. Maybe they had a sawmill on a
Oh,
farm
there's a big sawmill there.
and
Yeah,
I'm not sure if that, but they also had timberland.
Yeah.
I think they were, some of their production, they were pulling off their land. And some they may have been buying logs in. But our desire to have parity for forestry operations with agricultural operations. And maybe they wanted to take the portion out of for their milling operation. But there was a question that anytime they wanted to do a harvest, obviously it was in current use. And it was, they had to go through an extra hurdle and expense to get a.
They had to get a
approval under
permit
Act
amendment.
250.
yeah, they had
Permit
to,
amendment
yeah.
for whenever they wanted to go into the woods after it. At any time or after a specific harvest that was part of their current use? Do you recall, Kirsten, what that might be?
I recall mention of a project in that region during the stakeholder meeting process. And that there was a sawmill on a piece of property that was also in logging use. And so what this language considers is parity with how farming works. I mean, there is already language in the statute that clearly establishes that land below 2,500 feet, if it's used for logging or forestry management, is exempt from Act 250 jurisdiction. It doesn't explicitly call out that that no permit or permit amendment would be needed for those activities, or that the land itself is not subject to the conditions. It's just not quite worded the same way. And so what this would do is bring it in line with how farming is addressed through Act 250, and that an applicant would designate on a plan, like, this is land that I've assigned to farming or logging forestry and is not the subject of the Act 250 permit condition. And I guess Janet, and we were talking in the hallway a little bit about the, Stony Brook, that I know has been discussed as well.
Just gonna ask before we
Sure.
shift to Stony Brook, so the recommendation that's here is saying, we're gonna basically solve the problem that you just described. If you have a sawmill on your property right now, if you want to cut, you would have to get a permit amendment.
Because the sawmill needs a
Well-
permit.
Well,
You,
only if the specific permit put in a restriction on tree cutting. For example, as might occur for a stream buffer area or an aesthetic buffer, or maybe as a result of a deer wintering area being identified, like the Agency of Natural Resources might advocate for certain protections. And if the district commission decides that that's necessary to meet the criteria, they can put that kind of tree cutting restriction as a component of an Act 250 permit.
So if you have a plot of land under 2,500 feet and you want to log it, there's no sawmill on that plan, on that lot, you can log it.
Of course.
Without coming to,
right,
Right.
if there's a mill on that parcel, then if you want to log it, you might have to come back to the board.
Well, I think it would depend on the specific conditions of the permit and where the logging activity could be undertaken.
So some might.
Yeah.
My question
Yeah.
is, just whether there are some situations where you might have to currently.
If the logging would be undertaken in areas where Act 250 has established a restriction on tree cutting, then doing tree removal as a component of logging in those areas would require return to the district commission to consider relief from those restrictions. Right. But I think what this is looking to do is more clearly defining that if property is dedicated to both, say, like commercial development activity and logging, you can define that at the onset more specifically and ask the district commission to recognize these are the areas of the property that I'm designating for logging and forestry, and they're not therefore the subject of the Act 250 permit condition, like of the permit or restricted or governed by the Act 250 permit conditions.
So if you were going to apply for a permit today, okay, so the,
You want to put the PDF back up?
well, just before you do that, just the rest of the sentence here, provided, the two provideds.
Oh, yeah,
What do those actually mean?
for an existing permit that has conditions as
Yeah,
Kirsten
so-
described them.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
let's say someone has a permit and there's, in order to satisfy, let's say, criterion 8 aesthetics, there is a band of trees that is to be retained to provide aesthetic buffering. Screen, right. And that's a requirement of the existing Act 250 permit. You can't go in and log that area unless you return to Act 250 to get that somehow revised. So that's saying you can do logging and this happens routinely, right? Like that owners can undertake logging and forestry management as exempt from Act 250 below 2,500 feet, but they can't run afoul of an Act 250 restriction.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. You're always, you know, street bumpers and specifically with street buffer for aesthetics.
Yeah.
And obviously there are vernal pools and there are unique habitats and it wouldn't be like there are other AMPs. So it doesn't require, let's say it's a 300-acre woodlot or a 200-acre. They could routinely, as long as they're following their management plan, it's approved and filed under.
Yes, that's
use value.
Right, then
Yeah.
they don't need to
They
come
don't
back.
need-
Right.
no.
They do a harvest and a year later, they may log in a different section if it complies with. you know,
The Act 250 permit condition.
Right.
Yeah, as long as they're
So
not
that's,
running into that
Right.
area that is
yeah, and then,
restricted.
Is there
because of
ever
the
a
permit
common
condition.
sense thing? There's no common sense clause, but let's say along that buffer, there was a windstorm. And it was a lot of wind thrown trees, maybe some were red pine. Or weak fibers where they could go at salvage or.
Maybe.
I'm
case
trying to think of a
specific.
case when I
Trying to make
myself
that-
encountered that question.
Would they call the verb or the local,
Coordinator.
the coordinator? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if there's acts of nature that reasonably warrant some kind of remedial action, particularly if it's threatening a structure or property interests, then ordinarily, yeah, accommodation is made. Yeah.
Everybody
Um,
clear then on what the concept here that's in this recommendation is and what it isn't?
So I answered the first provided, but not the second.
The second provided? So this
Right.
last part of that,
right. So you would, yeah.
That would be in the case where there wasn't an existing permit, but then somebody did get an Act 250 permit for an operation on the property. And
It would be retaining the ability for the district commission as a component of development review to define areas where there would be restrictions on tree cutting. So it's saying
If
also
needed.
when needed to conform with the Act 250 criteria. So that's the second part. It's sort of a look back. The existing conditions would remain, you know, they wouldn't be altered by this statutory change as proposed. And then looking ahead, the commissions would still have the ability to put restrictions on tree cutting for the types of things that were mentioned.
Another
so
part.
But
Yeah, I've just got my eye on the clock here and I don't want us to be, all of us to be late. Go ahead, Jed, though, finish up.
But, okay, let's say they don't have a sawmill, but they have a family or children. They may want to take a piece of their holding out so their family members, children can build homes. And they would need it. That portion out of.
Back to for current use.
Yes, so so if it was just a large parcel that they logged and it does not have an Act 250 permit.
Right.
So whatever else they did, if it had an Act 250 trigger, then it would trigger the need for a permit. So it depends on the municipality and whether it's a 10-acre or 1-acre town and whether it's 6 lots or 10,
Yeah.
So it depends on what gets proposed as to whether that triggers.
If the scope of the number of lots or units rises to that threshold.
3 lots.
Yeah, it wouldn't trigger.
Wouldn't
If
trigger.
they haven't done anything in 5 years,
Yeah.
then they wouldn't need to come to Act 250 for a permit.
They would have to, if you withdraw a portion of that land, let's say it was current use, well, obviously you pay a
Pay an
extraction.
extraction fee. Yeah, but that's not us.
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
Nothing to,
Right.
thank you.
Yeah,
This isn't really Stony Brook then we're talking about.
not yet, I don't think.
So-
When you
No.
mentioned 9 and said Stony Brook, I was like, oh.
Well, it's a Stony Brook Lake concept
Right,
because
right.
it defines areas of a particular property that would be governed by the Act 250 permit versus other areas that would not be, right?
And,
So it sort of
and
has
Pete,
this.
if you put on the quoted language for farming, it shows this. So if you put that page back up, it's basically, it's like Stony Brook.
Right, but it's important to, Stony Brook is this feature of Act 250 that's founded in precedent that describes how an applicant can ask the district commission to define as part of an application and recognize that it's only this subset of land that is the development land. And it requires that the applicant provide some supplemental material. And it's complex, frankly. And I'm someone who's helped people navigate this, and it's not easy to understand. And it's this whole other thing that one has to do, basically demonstrating that this is the subset of the land that supports the development and is impacted or affected under all of the criteria. So it's kind of like, think about, you analyze all the criteria and what those impacts are, and then you have to go beyond that and consider, then what is the area of land where that effect occurs. And it's just, so it's more work, frankly, and it's complex. And so, like, from the board's perspective, mandating that occur or somehow trying to standardize and automate it would be complex and cumbersome, and it wouldn't make sense. Like, it's simpler to do it this way.
Can you zoom in a little bit, Pete? And this is the language that is in statute for agriculture, for farming.
And that would
So
be relevant to.
make it relevant to forest
Right,
logging. Yeah.
for people doing Act 250 projects on land where they're designating, this is land that, at least insofar as at the time of application, they're designating as logging, forest management. They're saying that's the present purpose of that land and the use of it. Then they can map that out and ask the commission to recognize that in the same way that occurs now for farming.
So the fundamental idea is to have some parity between forestry and farming. There's no provided that's in the existing
Well, that's
farming
the-
act language.
True.
Uh,
So
Well, it says will not conflict with any permit condition.
Right.
I mean, that's the,
That's sort of
That's the provided language.
parallel to the
Yeah.
provided language. Okay,
Yeah.
that's helpful.
yeah, so we very much tried to mirror the farming language in coming up with the proposed language.
And was there anything else? And I think you've spoken a little bit about Stony Brook and how it's a little bit more work, maybe a lot more work. And that's a reason to think twice about saying, in addition to what the language that you're going to propose for 9, possibly, that makes Stony Brook automatic, because that would be a little bit more of a burden.
Yes, more complex. And people can ask for that now. It's just as a reminder, as a component of the guidance that is being offered to wood products manufacturers. It's being, made known. The related existing guidance concerning this is being provided, but it's an opt-in, right? Like if you want to do it, you can. It's available now, and people can actually return if they already have a permit and there's some, plans change, or maybe the statute changes and there's a restriction that they want the commission to assess. Maybe they're now devoting land to logging forestry. You can ask for the commission to make a determination of a a limited subset of the land and determine that is the subject of the permit and the area of land subject to Act 250 jurisdiction. You can do that after the fact too. So, I mean, it's something that's available, but if it was something, it just doesn't lend itself to this sort of cookie cutter automated kind of standardized methodology, because each piece of property is different and each project is different. And so you would have to think about, okay, well, where are all the areas where there's traffic and access, and where does all the runoff go? And is there aesthetic buffering? And it would be, unique for each project. And you'd have to have information from the applicant to support that analysis. And, I just think it's adding a lot of extra burden and complexity that it just doesn't lend itself to kind of being automated that way.
Before we disperse, anything else that you want to say? Good.
No, I mean, how can we help?
Yeah, whatever.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I very much appreciate your coming back. Yeah, go
This
ahead.
might be a yes or no question, but those 2 lots that the landowner wanted to give to his kids, it required an 1,100-foot driveway.
Oh, wow.
With the road rule as proposed in Act 181 trigger,
Yep. After July 1.
after July.
Not necessarily. The board is currently developing guidance, and an 800-foot road
Right.
would trigger up to perhaps 2,000-foot driveway would not. So it's going to depend on,
On whether it meets the
which
definition of driveway or
road
road.
versus driveway. Yeah.
Grass growing up the middle of it.
Oh, no.
No, I think it'll be
No,
more like
that's exactly
what use is it serving?
Yeah.
With
So the board is developing guidance around this to help ensure that it's understood. And, but no, it wouldn't necessarily, I guess is.
For the record, I said to Chair Durfee, this yes or no question. So I'll just end. Correct. For the record, the road rule still is a terrifying notion to a lot of Vermonters.
Yeah.
Understand.
Great.
Okay.
We have one of our committee members leading the devotional, so
We need to do that.
and
Oh, okay.
that's the
Good.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for